Welcome to Payback with Silas. Every day, a new story, lies, betrayal, payback. Let's begin.
They told me I was too hard on people, too relentless, too focused on results, not enough on culture. It was a polite way of saying, you're a threat. And just like that, after doubling the company's revenue to $15 million a year, I was shown the door. My name is Ellis Carrington. I'm 45 years old, and until last week, I was the vice president of sales at a mid-sized tech company based in Boulder, Colorado, a place that prides itself on innovation and laid-back vibes but couldn't handle a little toughness when it came to business. I've spent the last 5 years building something real there. Real clients. Real partnerships. Real numbers. When I started, we were pulling in about $7.5 million annually. Last quarter? $15 million. Twice the money. Twice the growth. But it wasn't enough. The CEO, a man named Jasper Hollingsworth, a man who prefers buzzwords over results, called me into his glass-walled office on a sunny Thursday afternoon. "Ellis," he said, his voice calm but icy, "you're managing too hard for our culture. We need to let you go." I didn't flinch. I didn't argue. Because I knew this wasn't about culture. It was about control. And when you make the kind of waves I make, some people feel the need to drown you. I packed my things slowly. No rage. No desperation. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing I left a company that wasn't ready for me. But here's the thing, the clients I brought in? They weren't loyal to Jasper or his corporate pep talks. They were loyal to me. And the moment word got out I was gone, panic spread like wildfire. This isn't the end of my story. It's just the beginning. The moment I left that office, I knew things were going to unravel. But I underestimated just how fast and how deep the fallout would be. By late afternoon, I started getting calls, not from old friends or distant contacts, but from the clients themselves. Names like Azura Biotech in San Diego, Vecta Solutions out of Salt Lake City, and a couple of startups in Austin. All of them were my accounts, the clients I'd negotiated face-to-face, the ones who had trusted me with their business and their budgets. "Ellis," said Naomi Calderon, the CFO of Azura, "we heard the news. We're not renewing with Hollingsworth Technologies unless you're involved. You're the one who understood our needs." Another call came from Reggie Thornton, CEO of Vecta. His voice was tight, stressed. "Look, Jasper's team called us today. They're scrambling. Honestly, we're thinking of following you wherever you go." That was the moment it hit me. I wasn't just a cog in their machine. I was the engine. Without me, their so-called culture was a hollow shell, and they knew it. Meanwhile, back at the company, panic set in like a wildfire. The executive team held emergency meetings, trying to patch holes I'd left behind. But those holes were gaping craters, because I wasn't just managing a sales pipeline. I was building relationships, sealing deals, and frankly, carrying the revenue on my back. Inside the company's Slack channels, whispers turned into open complaints. "What was Jasper thinking?" one message read. "Losing Ellis is losing half our clients." Another. "The guy was a hard ass, sure, but damn if he didn't get results." By the end of the week, the CEO's polished smiles and PR spin couldn't mask the truth. Clients were leaving. Contracts were being reconsidered. Shareholders were nervous. I watched all this unfold from my new office, a modest space, nothing fancy, but with a team that wanted to win. Because I'd told them the truth from day one, success isn't about being liked, it's about delivering. And when you deliver, loyalty follows. That first week out wasn't easy. I fielded calls, crafted new pitches, and started assembling a team that understood my vision, a team that would move fast, stay focused, and never apologize for being tough when it counted. Because here's the truth, sometimes you have to burn down what isn't working to build something better. And I was ready to light that fire. The first days after I left Hollingsworth Technologies were a whirlwind, but not the kind you expect after getting fired. There was no time for self-pity, no space for bitterness. I was too busy watching the fallout back at the company and carefully laying the groundwork for my next move. Every call I received was a reminder of what I'd built and what they'd just lost. The people who mattered weren't loyal to the logo on the door or the fancy brand name. They were loyal to me because I showed up, fought hard, and made their success my mission. And in this business, trust is everything. I remember sitting in my small apartment in Boulder late at night, staring at my phone. On one screen, a message from Naomi Calderon. "We want to talk, let's meet Monday." Big opportunity. On another, Reggie Thornton was pushing for an immediate strategy session. The pressure was real, but I thrived on it. This was my arena. I started putting together a blueprint for my new company. The vision was clear, no fluff, no politics, just sharp, relentless execution. I wanted a team that wasn't afraid to be too hard when it meant winning. I was looking for the kind of people who knew that success demands sacrifice and courage. But I also knew I couldn't just replicate the old model. I had to be smarter. I had to build something sustainable, a culture where toughness was balanced with respect, where results were celebrated but people weren't disposable. Because I'd seen firsthand how fragile companies become when they mistake soft culture for strength. Over the next week, I met with former colleagues, industry contacts, and a handful of talented salespeople who shared my hunger. The chemistry was electric. They knew the game was changing, and they wanted to be part of the next big thing. I drafted a business plan, pitched investors, and started negotiating contracts with clients who were eager to follow me. Each deal felt like a vote of confidence, a rejection of the old guard and a validation of my methods. Back in Hollingsworth Technologies, the void I left became a chasm. Their quarterly reports showed a steep decline in revenue. The board was restless. Jasper's culture first approach suddenly looked like a luxury they couldn't afford. I didn't gloat. I let the numbers do the talking. Success, after all, is the best kind of revenge. By the time my new company officially launched, I was surrounded by a team that shared my vision and drive. We weren't just colleagues, we were a unit, a force moving in one direction, forward. Sitting in that modest conference room on our first day, I looked around at the faces eager to fight, to win, and to build something real. And I felt something I hadn't in a long time, pure, unshakable confidence. Because this time, I was in control. Starting a company is nothing like working for one. You don't just lead a team, you carry them. Every decision, every mistake, every win feels personal. The stakes are higher because now the outcome is yours, and yours alone. The first weeks were exhausting. Early mornings, late nights. Calls back to back. Investor meetings that felt like interviews, pitches where every word had to land just right. But I welcomed the grind. I'd traded the corporate cage for freedom, and with freedom came responsibility. I wasn't just managing numbers anymore. I was building a culture from scratch. I wanted my team to be sharp but also resilient. To be ruthless when negotiating, but kind when dealing with each other. Because I'd learned the hard way that a leader who loses his people loses everything. One of the first hires was Marcellus Wynn, a brilliant but underappreciated strategist I met through a mutual connection in Austin. Marcellus didn't just bring skills, he brought vision, a rare blend of creativity and pragmatism that pushed me to rethink parts of my plan. His background in disruptive startups made him perfect for this kind of challenge. Together, we started shaping the company's identity. We set aggressive sales targets, ones that felt almost unreachable, because if you don't aim high, what's the point? But alongside that, we implemented weekly check-ins, open forums where anyone could speak their mind, and a no-BS policy on accountability. The early clients who'd followed me were essential not only for revenue but for credibility. Their trust in me became the foundation we built on. Naomi Calderon's Azure Biotech became one of our biggest partners, and every deal closed was a small victory against the old company that discarded me. Yet leadership isn't just about wins. It's about managing the cracks, the moments when your team doubts, when pressure mounts, when ego threatens to derail progress. I found myself stepping into those moments, sometimes as a mentor, sometimes as a strict taskmaster, Balance was everything. One afternoon, Marcellus and I were hashing out a pitch when a junior sales rep made a mistake, a critical oversight that could have cost us a contract. The room went silent. The rep looked crushed. I could have chewed him out, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "Mistakes are expensive, but not as expensive as giving up. Learn from this and move faster next time." That moment set a tone. We were tough, but fair. We demanded excellence but gave room to grow. By the end of the month, the team had gelled in a way I hadn't expected so quickly. We were lean, hungry, and moving with a shared sense of purpose. The kind of purpose that's born from being told you don't belong, and proving you belong anyway. At night, when the city lights of Boulder flickered outside my window, I sometimes thought about Jasper and Hollingsworth Technologies. They'd lost more than just me. They lost a future. I didn't feel satisfaction or revenge anymore, just peace. Because I was building something that mattered on my own terms. And that, I realized, was worth more than any paycheck or title. The honeymoon period with the new company didn't last long. Once the initial adrenaline faded, reality hit hard. Building something new means not just creating success stories but facing moments when everything feels like it's about to collapse. I quickly learned that success isn't a straight line. It's a battlefield full of small fights, missed deadlines, clients who ghost you, investors who hesitate, and team members who struggle under the weight of expectations. One Tuesday morning, just 2 months after launch, I got a call that shook me. Naomi's team at Azure was hesitating on a critical contract renewal. The reason? Concerns about our capacity to scale quickly enough to meet their growing needs. It felt like déjà vu. The same fear I'd seen back at Hollingsworth. Is this new guy strong enough? Can he deliver? But this time, I was ready. I didn't just reassure them with empty promises. I laid out a detailed plan, resource allocation, hiring timelines, contingency measures, every angle covered. I didn't ask for trust, I earned it. That day, I worked until midnight drafting proposals, calling team members, aligning every piece. Marcellus stayed late too, pitching in with data and strategy. It was brutal, but we made it work. The next morning, Naomi called back. "Ellis, this is exactly what we needed. You have our confidence." That call was a lifeline. But it also reminded me of the weight I carried. The entire company's fate hinged on moments like these. Leadership means carrying the burdens that no one else sees. It means making decisions in the dark, trusting your instincts, and sometimes standing alone. A few weeks later, a different kind of test came. One of my top salespeople, a talented but headstrong woman named Zora, challenged a key client on pricing, without consulting me. The client pushed back hard. We risked losing the deal. Instead of reacting with anger, I called Zora into my office. I told her, "I respect your drive, but we win as a team. We make decisions together because we're stronger together. This isn't just about one contract, it's about building long-term trust." She nodded, understanding not just my words but the bigger picture. That conversation was a turning point for the team. It reinforced that we could be fierce competitors externally, but internally, respect and communication were non-negotiable. Every day brought challenges like this, balancing toughness with empathy, urgency with patience. At times I felt the old temptation to manage hard, the way Jasper said I did. But I knew better now. Real strength comes from knowing when to push and when to hold back. From keeping your team close, not just your clients. One evening, after a long day of negotiations, I sat alone in my office, the city skyline glowing beyond the window. I thought about the journey, the firing, the fallout, the new beginnings. And I felt something deeper than success or revenge. I felt purpose. Because leadership isn't about control. It's about responsibility. And I was ready to carry that weight, no matter how heavy. It wasn't just the external fights that tested me, it was the ones inside my own head. The doubts, the sleepless nights, the nagging questions about whether I was making the right calls. Building a company from the ground up means you become the center of a storm that no one else fully sees. Every risk, every failure, every small victory bounces inside you like thunder. About 3 months in, we faced what I now call the invisible battle. The company was growing fast, too fast maybe. Our team was stretched thin, the pressure was mounting, and cracks started showing in places I hadn't anticipated. One morning, I got a terse email from a key investor, someone who had put significant money into my vision. The message was blunt. Ellis, your burn rate is too high. If you don't control costs, we'll have to reconsider our involvement. I stared at the screen, feeling the familiar knot of anxiety tighten. Investors are like sharks, they sense weakness immediately. The moment you show vulnerability, they circle. I called Marcellus and laid it all out. We need to tighten up, but I don't want to sacrifice momentum. He nodded, his usual calm voice steady. It's about smart cuts, not blind slashes. We focus on what drives revenue, everything else gets trimmed. We spent days poring over budgets, questioning every expense. The team braced for cuts, but I was determined to protect the core, the people and projects that fueled our growth. During a tough company-wide meeting, I addressed the team honestly. We're in a critical phase. We need to be smarter, more efficient. But I promise this, no one who's committed to this vision will be left behind. Some faces showed worry, others resolve. I felt the weight of their trust settling on my shoulders. That week, I barely slept. I was running on coffee and stubbornness. But amid the chaos, I found clarity. This wasn't just about money or metrics. It was about proving to myself, and everyone who believed in me, that we could survive the storm and come out stronger. One evening, as I was leaving the office, I bumped into Zora, the saleswoman I disciplined a while back. She looked tired but determined. Ellis, she said, I just closed a deal that covers our burn for the next quarter. We're not just surviving. We're fighting. That moment reminded me why I started this journey, not for revenge or titles, but to build something real, something lasting. The invisible battle was far from over. Doubts and fears would come and go. But now, I knew how to face them, with grit, honesty, and a team that had my back. And that made all the difference. The closer we got to our first full year, the heavier everything became. Not because the work got harder, but because the stakes kept climbing, and the cracks in the foundation threatened to swallow us whole. I've always believed that pressure either breaks you or builds you. For months, I'd been holding it all together, the team, the investors, the clients, but deep down, I felt the weight pulling me toward a breaking point. It started with a series of small failures. A major deal in Seattle fell through after months of negotiations. A senior engineer resigned unexpectedly, just as we were prepping for a critical product demo. Our lead marketing strategist got sick, and the replacements weren't cutting it. Each setback alone would have been manageable, but stacked together, they felt like a storm closing in. I tried to stay ahead, but it was like running on a treadmill that kept speeding up. I remember one night sitting in my office, the city lights dim through the rain-streaked window, and feeling utterly alone. My phone buzzed nonstop, messages from investors demanding updates, emails from anxious clients, calls from my team asking for guidance. I could feel the tension rising in the company like a pressure cooker about to blow. Then came the incident with Marcellus. He'd been my right hand, the strategic mind who balanced my fire with ice. But even he had his limits. During a heated board meeting, Marcellus challenged one of my decisions publicly. It was about whether to pursue a risky client who had a reputation for late payments but promised huge potential. I don't think it's worth the risk, he said firmly. We can't afford to chase ghosts while real opportunities slip away. I disagreed. I saw a chance to scale rapidly, to prove the doubters wrong. The room went silent. Our disagreement was no longer just a difference of opinion, it was a fracture. After the meeting, we locked eyes in the hallway. We need to talk, I said. That conversation was brutal. We laid everything on the table, fears, frustrations, ambitions. For a moment, it felt like the partnership I built was crumbling. But then, something shifted. We found common ground, and more importantly, respect for each other's perspectives. It was a hard reset, A reminder that leadership isn't about being right all the time, but about staying united when the world is trying to pull you apart. Around the same time, Zora came to me with news that shattered my carefully balanced world. She was thinking of leaving. Burned out from the relentless pace and frustrated by what she saw as mixed messages from leadership. That hit me harder than I expected. She was one of the fiercest fighters on my team. Losing her would be a major blow. I called her in for a candid talk. "I won't lie," I told her. "This ride is brutal. I ask a lot, sometimes too much. But I promise you this, if you stay, I'll do everything I can to make this journey worth it." She looked me in the eye and said, "I'm not sure you can." That night I didn't sleep. I sat with my thoughts, weighing every choice. It was the first time I truly questioned if I had what it takes to lead through the chaos. But then I remembered why I started. Not for the paycheck, not for the title, but to build something that mattered, with people who believed in the same vision. The next morning, I gathered the team. I didn't sugarcoat it. I told them everything, the wins, the losses, the doubts. "None of this is easy," I said. "But I believe in us. We're not just building a company, we're building a legacy. And that means fighting through the darkness to find the light." There were nods, some tears, but above all, a renewed sense of purpose. That day marked a turning point. We were broken, yes, but not beaten. Because sometimes, hitting rock bottom is the only way to find the strength to rise higher than ever before. After hitting that breaking point, something inside the company shifted. It wasn't immediate, growth rarely is, but it was real, and it was powerful. We started making smarter decisions, driven not by desperation but by clarity. Marcellus and I found a new rhythm, a balance between ambition and caution. We refined our strategy, focusing on clients who valued long-term partnerships over quick wins. We hired cautiously but deliberately, bringing in people who weren't just talented but aligned with our mission and grit. Zora stayed. That alone was a victory. But more than that, she came back energized, invested, and ready to fight harder than ever. Our product demos, which had been shaky, began to win praise. Client feedback sessions became learning opportunities, not moments of defeat. Slowly, the pipeline filled with deals that weren't just contracts but commitments. One memorable win came from a mid-sized logistics company in Portland. They were skeptical at first, but our tailored approach and relentless follow-up won them over. Closing that deal felt like validation that our new path was working. But with momentum came new pressure. Investors wanted more, faster. Competitors began circling, sensing our rise and trying to push us back down. Emails flooded in, some cordial, others veiled threats disguised as business propositions. I spent more time on the road, flying from city to city, meeting clients face to face, building relationships the old-fashioned way. I wasn't just selling a product, I was selling trust, vision, and a promise. At night, exhausted but exhilarated, I'd check in with Marcellus and Zora. They were the anchors keeping me grounded, the voices reminding me what mattered when fatigue threatened to cloud my judgment. There was one late evening in Denver when I sat with Zora over takeout, the city skyline a blur behind us. She smiled and said, "You know, I thought I was done with startups. But this feels different." I nodded. "Because we're not just chasing money. We're chasing something real." That feeling, that momentum, was intoxicating. We were no longer scrambling to survive. We were building, growing, shaping a future on our terms. But I also knew better than to get comfortable. Momentum can be fragile. And the next test was always just around the corner. Still, in that moment, with the team rallying and the future wide open, I felt unstoppable. By the time we'd built real momentum, I thought the hardest part was behind me. But leadership has a way of humbling you, no matter how far you've come. One morning, I woke to a message from Jasper, the old CEO at Hollingsworth. It was unexpected, terse but oddly respectful. "Ellis, we need to talk. This thing between us isn't over." I knew exactly what he meant. Hollingsworth was bleeding clients and revenue, and they saw me as the source of both their pain and their lost prestige. I debated ignoring it. I almost deleted the message. But something pushed me to reply. Okay. Let's talk. The meeting was set in a neutral space, a quiet, glass-walled conference room in downtown Denver. Jasper arrived first, impeccably dressed as always, his expression unreadable. I followed, calm but ready. He started bluntly. We underestimated you. You took what we built and made it yours. And we paid the price. His words were sharp, but there was no hatred. Just cold calculation. I responded evenly. I didn't take anything you built. I showed what was possible when you lead with conviction and clarity. Jasper leaned forward, voice low. Your too hard style almost destroyed us. But maybe it's exactly what the market demands. Hollingsworth needs to change, and you're part of that change. We want to negotiate a deal. He laid out a proposal to buy back some clients, merge some operations, and even offered me a position as a senior advisor, a kind of peace offering and acknowledgement. I sat there, weighing every word, every implication. Going back would mean returning to the cage I'd broken free from. But it also meant security, resources, and a chance to influence a bigger stage. But I'd learned my lesson. I wasn't the same man who left that office months ago. I looked Jasper in the eye and said, Thank you. But I'm building something new. Something better. I'm not interested in going backwards. The meeting ended without a handshake, but not with bitterness. It was a turning point, a clear line drawn in the sand. Walking away, I felt lighter. I realized that true power isn't about reclaiming lost ground. It's about forging your own path, no matter how uncertain. Back at the office, I gathered the team. I told them about the meeting, not to boast, but to remind us why we fought so hard. We're not just survivors, I said. We're leaders. And leaders don't look back, they move forward together. That day, I saw something in their eyes, a spark of pride and belief that no obstacle, no offer, no past could extinguish. Because we were more than a company now. We were a force. And the crossroads? We'd already chosen our direction. The months that followed felt like the calm after a storm, but not the quiet of surrender. It was the peace of victory earned through grit, sacrifice, and unwavering resolve. Our little company had grown into something solid, a beacon to clients and competitors alike. The team wasn't just a group of employees. We were a family, battle-tested and ready for whatever came next. I'd learned to lead not with iron fists but with steady hands. Tough when needed, but always fair, always transparent. One evening, after a successful board meeting, I stood on the rooftop of our Boulder office, the sunset painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. Below, the city buzzed with life, but up here, I was alone with my thoughts. I thought back to the day Jasper fired me. The shock, the sting, the disbelief. And then I smiled. Because I knew something then I didn't fully understand back then. Losing a title or a job doesn't define you. What defines you is how you respond. I'd responded with pride, with courage, with vision. Behind me were the old battles, the heartbreaks, the doubts. Ahead of me was everything else: opportunity, growth, freedom. The phone buzzed, Marcellus checking in. I answered with a grin. We've got a new client interested in a nationwide rollout, he said. Good, I replied. Let's show them what we're made of. I closed my eyes for a moment, breathed in the crisp mountain air, and felt a deep sense of calm. I was no longer just Ellis Morgan, the fired executive. I was Ellis Morgan, founder, leader, and the author of my own story. And this story was just beginning.